Welcome, one and all. Good day, Whiskey Brothers, Whiskey Sisters. Welcome to the Whiskey Book Club's 8th book review and final edition of this one right here, Drink More Whiskey, Everything You Need to Know About Your New Favorite Drink, by author Daniel Yaffe, right up there. That's the guy there. And as always, we're honored to have you, the viewer, and our lovely panel with us today. My name's Dolph. I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society, founder of the Whiskey Book Club, your host tonight. And for those of you that are a little bit new to us, I'll explain a bit of what we are. We're a group of whiskey geeks. That's what we are. That love to share a dram, or two. I'll drop my other one, or two drams, and share our passion for reading, and mostly about whiskey-related activities. There's no other. There are a couple other alcohol book clubs out there, but none that go in depth like we do with the authors, and that's what we like. We like spending time with these guys and gals at one point, hopefully, and just talk about whiskey. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to do our introductions with your names, other platform handles, what's in your glasses, why you chose them tonight, and we're going to start with special guest Daniel, continue alphabetically with Dave, Drew, Jason, MacDaddy, Kent, and Nicholas. So it's all you, Daniel.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me back. It's wonderful to see you guys. My Twitter handle is Yaffe Tome, YAFFETOME, or Yaffe Tome. And tonight I am drinking, starting off with a Jefferson's Ocean.
Nice.
Yeah.
That looks like a special edition one too, right?
Yes, Voyage 17.
All right. Looking good. Thank you, kind sir.
Cheers.
And Dave, you're up.
All right, guys. It's Yukon Dave coming from the basement as always. And tonight I'm cleaning up some of the samples I got laying around the house. Whoa. This one is a Deanston 24. It's a special cask done for the Park Whiskey Society. I just got the sample on like Thursday. So I've been just dying to get into it. So here goes.
It's delicious.
It is. I'll show you what the bottle looks like in a second. And Drew, you're up.
Hi, Drew Semper. Got two tonight. And what I've decided on is my Two Brewers 4 and SMWS 3073. So plum jam and toffee apples.
Great minds think alike. That's all I'm going to say.
And then just for giggles in the back, I've got an Ardbeg Caesar.
Nice.
Excellent. And we're up with Jason.
Hi, everyone. It's Jason here. You can find me on Instagram at jmac25. And tonight in my glass, I have the Oban Bay Reserve, the Game of Thrones, the Night's Watch edition. And you can't tell because of the opaque bottle, but it's almost empty, so I chose this one because it's going to be a bottle kill tonight, people.
Excellent. Yeah. Kent, you're up.
Hi, my name's Kent. I go by Whiskey Ass on pretty much all platforms.
All platforms.
Yeah, the platforms. How many choices I have to drink? No, just kidding. Tonight I am pulling out a little High Coast Berg. This is quite a sherry bomb, and if you can get your hands on it, I highly recommend it. And to wash it down, we're doing a little bit of a Innocent Gum, the Blood Red Sky. Also a great one to back that one. It's just
Good
an
stuff.
awesome combination.
You can't stop cocktailing, can you? It's beer and whiskey now. We're good. Nick, you're up, bud.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nick. You can't find me anywhere but just here. I don't have any handles. I don't do social media. But for tonight, to honor the Canadian and the Scottish whiskeys we're doing, I got an old Perpetuum from Ardbeg, and I'm going with a cast strength Two Brewers number 10.
Nice. Two fantastic.
It's cast strength and it's Canadian. So those are my two whiskeys of choice. And if I get to it, I have Octomore I can get to, but we'll see.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. And here we go. And this is the one that Dave has right now. So it's a nice looking bottle. It really
Beautiful
is.
bottle.
Individual bottling at Deanston. They do pretty bottles. It's really good. And what I'm doing tonight, here, I'll put this on the side. I'm Canadian and Scotch. So I'm doing the Canadian Club 40-year-old. There. Woo, that's a big one. And this will be done tonight as well. So this will be a good night for a bottle kill. And number 2 is Manickmore. It's SMWS because we're doing Scotch and we're doing independent bottlers in the book at this time. So I thought it was a good idea. And several of us thought of the Canadian as we brought it out. So good for us. Daniel, let's start with you. And this question came from Dave last week, and I just wanted to start it off. Dave, do you want to ask the question about? Well, do you want to ask any questions? Because
I don't remember last week.
Well, this is Dave's question. So we're
so long ago.
So as we read through the chapters, many of our panel members, and I was thinking this, and Dave was thinking,
Oh yeah, okay.
wondered about how the research was conducted. So, which means we were wondering how many countries you actually made it to, and how many distilleries in the different countries, and was it all on the company dime? Because that would have been much more impressive if everything was paid for by someone else. All
which company? Any company?
I don't care who paid for it, as long as you got your free trip.
So in the process of writing the book, I did spend a bunch of time in Scotland, Ireland, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Japan. I travel a lot, generally speaking. So I have now been to distilleries in many more places, but those were for the book. How many distilleries? This is actually a really good question. I should sit down and count. I actually don't know. I lost count at some point, but
that'd be a good bragging point. I've been to this many distilleries in this many countries, and this, I think
totally. I'm gonna guess it was 40 distilleries.
Nice.
It was a busy year and a half. Some companies did help me with parts of the trip. It was not everything was all paid for, but there were like some travel here, hotel here, this kind of thing, which did make it all possible. So I was publishing a magazine at the time, so I had a lot of relationships with some companies that were able to help me and made it a little bit easier.
Okay.
I had an advance to the book, and I spent the whole thing on traveling to drink.
But you brought your wife as well. Was she your wife at the time?
She was my girlfriend at the time. Didn't make it to Scotland and Ireland, unfortunately, but traveled through the American South with me, which was amazing.
Okay, still part of the wooing process. That works out. It's a Valentine's Day special weekend. We can talk about that. It's a good idea. It's good.
You definitely know if you want to spend your life with them after doing a long trip.
Yeah,
100%.
I agree with that comment.
Yeah,
and we knew that we would both love whiskey. So,
Dave, looks like you have a question, buddy.
Yeah. So with you doing the magazine at the same time, did any of your travels get into your magazine?
It's a great question. I think I wove some stories around some of my travel. So the magazine, I was mostly publishing it and editing it. So I wrote very little for it, but I do think that bits and pieces of stories made it into the magazine. I mean, as you probably read the book, there were stories in there specifically from my travels. So we're talking about Scotland, like the time I spent at the castle by myself. Incredible opportunity. I mean, this was an unreal experience.
So,
and Japan.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, how many in Japan?
Japan, I went to. Where did I go to? Suntory. I went to the Yamazaki Distillery. I went to Hakushu, and then I went to Chichibu. Chichibu was cool. I hung out with Ichiro. That was. You guys are familiar, hopefully.
Yeah.
That was. What was it?
Just getting there. We're starting I'm starting my Japanese whiskey kind of trajectory. I've been there probably for maybe a year and a half where I've had the basics, but now I'm starting to raise the game just a little bit. So I was really happy to read your section in there as well. So
there's some amazing Japanese whiskey, and I would say Ichiro. So Ichiro's malts. Some of the best craft Japanese whiskey that's out there. It's harder to get in the U.S., but You read the story. I mean, I ended up at the distillery. It was just me and him sitting in a room. It was fantastic.
Dave.
So, as I read the book, it seemed like you had probably more nightlife fun in Japan than anywhere else. Would that be fair?
Yeah. So a couple of reasons for that. I mean, Japan is one of the nightlife places of the world. I mean, I don't know that people go out to clubs very often in northern Scotland. I think it's a little bit more about the daytime drinking out there. Yeah, and then secondly, I was all alone in Scotland. So met some folks at bars, but in Japan, my brother used to live there. I have some friends there, so was able to actually go out and enjoy the nightlife.
Fun. Yeah, I'm envious. I was.
I was going to make a highball tonight, but I'm just too lazy.
That's what you're supposed to get when you ask the waitress. She'll tell you.
Yeah.
Too complicated.
Yeah. That's why I like scotch. You just take the lid off and pour it in a cup, a glass.
Yeah. It's very good.
Daniel, after visiting so many distilleries, could you tell us a couple that really stood out for you? Ones that we should really try to get to?
Oh my God. Just off the cuff. So Lefroy, if you guys haven't been, is amazing. And I don't know if everyone gets the opportunity to cut peat out in the peat bogs, but they gave me the peat shovel. And that was an incredible experience. Hakushu up in Japan, beautiful. I think I was there in the springtime. Everything was green. It was lush and very Japanese, like incredibly clean, incredibly put together, beautiful. Where else? Isla was incredible. As everywhere in Isla was just incredible. I think I talked about it a bit in the book. I was basically on the island alone. There were no tourists. It was freezing cold in the middle of winter. Rented a car on the wrong side of the road, and it was just there were rainbows and sheep wandering around, and the whiskey made it probably a little bit prettier. It was just absolutely incredible. Every distillery there was amazing.
Well, I plan on cutting the peat too, and there's a couple of us that own our 1 foot by 1 foot plot of Lefroy, which that was their promotional thing in their bottles, right? So a lot of us jumped on board. So we'll go there, and I'll take some peat out of my foot by foot.
Totally.
They will tell me to stop because it's my land. They told me, so I'll be good. I'll bring a little shovel and bring it back home.
Yeah, but don't be trespassing on somebody else's land at that point.
Yeah.
to get over it.
How do you get to yours?
Maybe not.
If you all make it down to Kentucky, it didn't make it into the book because it actually didn't exist when I wrote the book. But since then, I've been back down to a distillery called Castle and Key. It was a mothball distillery that they reopened.
Castle and Key?
Castle and Key. I don't think they have any whiskey of their own label yet. They've been producing for some other folks, and I think they might have a gin, but the place is gorgeous. You get transported to France, like a castle in the French countryside. Really, really incredible place.
Well, the Bourbon Trail, is it on the Bourbon Trail or just off of it? If we ever do the Bourbon Trail, will we be able to get to that?
Yeah, it's very close to Woodford.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I think it's down the street.
All right, new question.
Yeah.
So page 74, we've got here Walker and Seagram's shape the direction and define the trends in Canadian whiskey. Both used, and this your words, the most notable marketing campaigns the world's ever seen. I just want to hear about it. What did they do that was that impressive? Can you think of one or two?
Yeah, so I think it was in the book right after that, but they started hiding bottles around the world.
Yeah.
That was them.
That was them. Yeah. I believe they hit a bottle like the top of Kilimanjaro. They hit bottles all over the world. I think a couple in Antarctica that have yet to be found. And so it kind of like that. What is it like the great world race or whatever it is? The treasure hunt worldwide
For whiskey.
Yeah.
Done. Yeah, I'd do
I
that.
forgot that one.
Any other ones that come to mind?
Not offhand. I know that it was a marketing powerhouse for a long time. And
Okay. I got to keep my eye out for it. And
Didn't
I'm going to
CC
do it.
do something like that as well? They hit a couple really old bottles, like 50-year-old bottles somewhere. And
Who was
CC, Canadian Club.
Club.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, they had a big race to find the bottle.
Oh, did the same thing again. Nice.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get away with that with the drinking laws, like the age and all that kind of stuff?
Well, the beer
I
company
dropped
also
my bottle and I lost it. I don't know where it went, sir.
inside those little machines out somewhere, and you had to go single Canada to them to get the beer.
I can't see.
Does that ring a bell to anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a Molson thing? But you had to talk to somebody to get it. You didn't just, it wasn't just laying in the bushes where any kid
It's
could
just
pick it
laying
up.
on the beach.
Oh,
They put them on, but they put them on popular hiking trails, not in Antarctica, I'll tell you that. But they were in like different beaches where someone would walk across it.
well, there's a
That's-
brewery here in Alberta that got fined heavily because they left a whole bunch of beer on the platform of one of the rapid transit stations for people to sample. And there was no supervision.
Why they didn't do it in
should have
Yukon?
lied. They should have said they lost it. Sorry.
Wasn't me, that's for sure.
It was stolen, sir. I'm sorry. It was stolen. I just didn't. I should have come to the police.
Beer companies tried that where they put it out there, and maybe they were watched. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. That'd be good. Well, talking about distilleries and stuff, let's go with this quote right here. Scotland is, by all accounts, a Disneyland for adults. Throw on a kilt, replace Mickey with famed Scottish poet Robbie Burns, ditch the funnel cake for haggis. I wonder, panel, and this is everybody, so this is Daniel and everyone across. Let's say you're given all expense paid 7-day vacation to either Disneyland with 3-4 friends or family members, or a Scotland distillery tour for a week with one person, not 3 or 4. Which one are you picking?
Wow, that should be a no-brainer.
I was going to say, is this even
I want to hear from your words. So, Daniel,
Hands down, Scotland.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Dave?
Oh, definitely Scotland. I've been to Disneyland and Disney World, so.
Dave, you have a new grandchild, and maybe that grandchild might want to go there in 3 years or 4 years with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to Scotland. The kid can stay home and go north.
Does anyone say Disneyland? I don't have to go through any of you.
I'm really going to
The
Disneyland.
world.
Nick, let's start with you. Why Disneyland, buddy?
Disney World.
Disney
I don't
World.
Euro
This is my
Disney.
daughter. My daughter loves it. To see the happy face on her face when we go there. Also, Epcot Center has a really neat liquor place where you can visit every country.
Oh,
When you think about that, that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, when I went to Edinburgh last year, or whatever it was, I brought my daughter. Every time we walked into a whiskey place, she just frowned and you got 2 minutes to get out. So I know that if I was to drag her around the world, I couldn't do the whiskey with her. So the Disney World, we could both enjoy full tilt, and you could drink at Epcot. So, and they do have the odd whiskeys and the odd interesting wines there.
You don't have to bring your daughter to Scotland. That
I-
could be a
I
friend
know.
like me.
Oh, I do have to bring my daughter Scotland. If I went to Scotland without her, she would like disown me because she loves the castles. But
All right.
she wants to see the old Edinburgh. So unfortunately, yeah, even if I brought my wife, they still wouldn't be able to do Scotland. So the only way I could do Edinburgh is family wise, would be by myself to do the Scotch stuff.
All right.
It'd have to
And
be
you can always
everyone
take
behind.
me as your plus one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd take one of
I
you
only
guys.
have to.
All right, Drew. Why you?
It'd be Disney. Yeah, we were supposed to go to Disney with Roseanne just at the start of all of this COVID, so that got canceled. So we still owe her that. And the other reason is a week for Scotland is way too short. When we travel, it's usually 5, 6 weeks, 8 weeks going there. She'll do school and hang out in Scotland with family. So week's too short. So
He's
I'll do
doing your
Disney.
doctorate there as well, just so people understand. So they have that, and no children, but dogs. So who takes care of your dogs for 2 months when you're taking off? They won't even recognize you when you come home.
Oh yeah, no. They're good. But
Okay.
yeah, we got family.
All right, Kent, why are you picking Scotland, buddy?
Never been. Have no interest in Disneyland. My kid's old enough; she can get her own damn ticket.
Fire on.
And if I don't pick my wife, I might as well file for divorce now.
Right there. All right. Done. Mac Daddy.
Oh, Scotland for sure. You know, in fact, a couple years ago, I was in Tokyo with some family, and since I'd been there before, I was kind of leading them around, tour guiding, and then one day they said they really, really wanted to go to Disneyland, you know, Tokyo Disney, and I ditched them. They went to Tokyo Disney. I called up a buddy in Tokyo, and we went drinking that day. I said, I'll just meet you guys back in the hotel. So,
Okay.
yeah, Scotland would be the same thing.
Even the choice to go to Disneyland, he gives it up. I'm kind of the same. I don't know if I'd go, but I probably would, because I've only been to one, the Euro Disney in Paris. But I've been there, I think, 7 times, 7 or 8, because we bring kids on trips when I was overseas for a bit. And definitely Scotland, because I haven't been to too many places in Scotland. Now I'm going to ask you, where in Scotland are you going to do our whiskey trail? You're going to do a week? Where are you going to do a week? Because as Drew said, you're not doing Scotland in a week. You're going to a small pocket. So where's your pocket, gentlemen? I'm going with you, Daniel.
Jeez.
I'd fly back to Isla in a heartbeat. I didn't get to see enough of it. Really magical place. I would not go in the middle of summer though, because I've heard when there's like the whiskey festival,
It's nuts.
It's a shit show. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that from people too. I'd still like to go just to get the special bottlings that they put out, but then you got to stand in line all day to get their one special bottle.
Yeah.
And half of the people get the bottle and then they sell them on the open market anyways, or the tertiary market. So,
Right.
How about Dave? Do you know yet?
Yeah, I never thought this one all the way through. So it would be a blast trying to plan it.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a bunch of places, but yeah, a week is too short there. But
Okay,
I'd go.
I'll leave it. Maybe you'll come up with something by the time we get to the end of them. Kent,
Oh, no.
which area?
Well, I heard this was all expenses paid for 7 days, so I have a private helicopter, and we were going to do as much as we possibly can. But I definitely would do Islay and the Highlands. Campbelltown would be another the top 3.
Good. All right, we're in agreement with some. Nick,
Yes.
answer the
Yes.
question.
If I wanted to go to
You're not
Scotland or
supposed
back
to
to
clue out on
Disney,
this one. Where
It'd
which
be Isla.
area are you going for your week? If you're
it'd
there,
be Isla for sure. If it was for me, Isla.
Okay.
Because all my favorite distilleries are on Isla.
Okay. Done.
Yeah, I'd be that region. So Campbellton, Jura, Isla.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're
Can
all
get over there.
right there.
Mac Daddy.
I would definitely start with Isla. My whiskey journey started with Isla whiskeys, and Lafroig is my wife's favorite whiskey, favorite distillery. So that's where I'd go.
Can I
Okay.
change my answer?
Yep. I was waiting for you.
Well, I have looked really closely at Ardbeg. I wanted to go visit there and stay in the house they've got right there on the ocean.
Okay.
So that's where I'd probably start.
That's your choice. Okay.
And I heard
don't know
Bowmore
how
has
this would
some
work.
cabins.
Yeah, Bowmore was got a amazing little area as well.
Yeah.
So
I have a friend who approached me, saw a hotel for sale right near the McAllen,
Oh, geez.
and was like, "Hey, should we buy it?" And
if you could afford it, why not?
yeah, no, it was. I'm very glad that we do not own a hotel during COVID. This is not a good time to own a hotel in Northern Scotland, but it was really interesting. It was really intriguing.
So
Is that-
what's a hotel going for?
Yeah.
How much was it
would
selling
that-
for?
Yeah.
Oh my god, how much was it selling for? I mean, compared to San Francisco houses, I mean, it was. I was probably $400,000, something like that.
400,000 pounds or dollars?
Yeah,
I guess
probably
for you,
more.
Good question. It's probably pounds.
Yeah.
Probably pounds. Probably in the $500,000-$600,000.
So 2 million or Canadian dollars is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. We're not that bad. Although that would have been a great idea, because you're the time that the people are actually walking around is in the summer and spring, maybe a bit in the fall. So you'd have 6 months with nobody there. So you're not making money for 6 months. You're working crazy amount of time for the other 6 months. You're dealing with really drunk people for those 6 months too as they're coming home. Because the way I hear it, and you said it as well, no nightlife, it's more afternoon life or early evening life in Scotland. So I think that would have been kind of cool.
I heard 6 months of liver abuse and 6 months to recover.
And
Which
you
one?
might not even stay in Scotland for the winter, because if you could afford it, if we could afford it, maybe we'd be down south too. Who knows? That's a good idea.
Daniel, didn't you talk about the people stumbling home at 3 o'clock in the morning there in Scotland?
Yeah, I mean, in the cities, people go out. I mean, I've been out in Edinburgh before. It's just like you get into the small towns, you know, where most of the distilleries are outside of the cities, and it's quiet. It's pretty quiet.
As long as my flight landed somewhere where I could go to these guys.
Absolutely.
So the flight lands here, and then I'd take my way probably to Campbellton and then to Isla as well. Those were my two that I'd like to go. And Campbellton, really just the work ethic and how it's more community. I want to see if there's a difference between one kind of feel and another kind of feel. Because we know a lot of distilleries, like you said in the book too, it's run by 2-3 people. I'd like to see how a whole community working for a distillery kind of feels, if you know what I mean.
Kind of like Bushmills?
Yeah.
I'd be kind of, what about Bushmills?
Well, it's like a little town, isn't that what you said? That's a community built that.
Is everyone live or working for Bushmills around the town?
Yeah, I think I actually somebody I work with now. I think her great grandfather or her grandfather is one of the employees at Bushmills. She's Irish. Most of the distilleries are like that. I spent a bunch of time at the Glen Turret. Great folks. They all live around the town, and you know it's a very, very small town. What was the name of the town? I'm blanking on the name, but it's lovely. Everyone gets to know each other real well.
Well, which one was it? Was it that you were on the plane and everybody from the distillery was on the plane with you?
Ardbeg.
Ardbeg. Okay.
Yeah, that was a trip. This is you guys have hopefully some of you have been to the airport in Isla. Tiny. It's like a one room airport. And I had my camera with me, and they pulled out the tripod, and it was like a mini tripod, and they were looking at it. I've never been so harassed in an airport at security than Isla. And it's funny, the tripod kind of looks like a butt plug, and I think they were looking at it being like, well, why are you carrying this around? It has 3 prongs.
That's funny.
It was really bizarre. And then I got on the airplane and I realized that everybody knew each other. I was like silent and everyone was drinking and laughing. I was like, "Who are you guys? This is nuts!" Like, what? It's the middle of winter. Like, I thought I'd be on the flight alone. It was packed. I mean, it's a small plane. And they were like, "Oh, we all work together at one of the distilleries." I was like, well, "Tell me more." And I was just hoping that the plane didn't go down because the world.
But that would have been a fantastic flight. I've been on a couple flights where a lot of people kind of connect in your little area. It's really fun when that happens. And Kent might have this more when people are going down south to Mexico, and they're going to a destination. I think a lot of people might be on the same plane going to the same destination. And that happened to me once in Europe, and just a lot of us doing it. It was fun. It was really, really fun. And by the end of the flight, you're happy to be there, but you didn't want the flight to end. It's really kind of cool.
Totally.
All right.
Yeah, we've got a few good friends out of flights like that.
Where was that?
We've got some very good friends out of flights like that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Absolutely.
Even a couple of years ago, we were going down to visit Mom in Mazatlan, and we had to fly over to BC and then down. And so we're sitting in the airport, and I'm a quiet guy, so I made a comment to a couple at the table next to us, and well, we've been friends ever since. So they ended up being in Mazatlan. We met with them a few times. Stayed at their house last year, even out in the BC, and now they're moving to the shoe shops. I said, as long as you got a spare room for us. So COVID being said, if we can get over to BC, we'll be there hopefully this summer. So.
It helps to be friendly. It really does. And to drink and have fun too. All right, we're talking about Scotland. Let's stick with kind of the Scotland thing. Daniel talks about 2,500 completely different brands or different. I want to know, when you heard that there's 2,500 different brands of Scotch sold around the world, did you think like different brands such as Glenfarclas compared to Oban, compared to anyone else? Or did you think Glenfarclas 10, 15, 17, 21, 25? I want to know what the panel thought, and then Daniel, you could tell us if we're right or wrong. Dave, what do you think when you read that?
Well, I just thought it was different expressions, multiple expressions from multiple distilleries. There's only, 120 distilleries in Scotland?
Okay.
Roughly, so
you're thinking expressions, okay?
Right away, you do the math, and it's got to be.
Well, that was me too, so let's see what the rest say.
Yeah.
They might not like our math.
Well, you're the math teacher.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm right, man. Anyone think that it was 2,500 distilleries or different ones across?
Yeah, no. Sheila did a bunch of math through there, and she said considering there was over 1,300 different brands of Scotch in 76 and 133 plus distilleries since then, she's going to go with brands as opposed to expressions as well.
Yeah.
Okay, brands. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's doing brands. We've got two expressions.
Yeah. Not distilleries, but brands.
Brands, yeah.
Just names from distilleries. Different names.
Yeah, because I mean, how many brands do we not even know about that go into blends?
I'm guessing.
Right.
Or not just, blends as well, but for distribution throughout Europe or throughout the Northern Europe, which are different from the ones that go into Paris or not Paris, France. Oh, all right. Anyone else got something else to say before Daniel tells us who's right?
I'm thinking back to I believe it is actually brands because to that point there are a lot of brands that are different blends and a lot of different brands that go into blends. And again, remember, it's not distilleries, right? I mean, you think about, there's a lot of different blends, right? And with the liquids that are out there, they're branding it different. Some of them are different for different regions as well, right? I mean, there are brands that don't make it to Canada, don't make it to the US. They're like exclusively for certain markets. So yeah, no, it's not. I mean, if expressions, I think it's going to be far, far more. I mean, you could do the math on this. If you take any distillery, any brand, they're going to have, over 10, 15 years, they're going to have, many expressions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it is fascinating. Absolutely.
Well, I've been reading, I've got the Scotch Whisky Association's report on the volume they make and where they ship and that. It's really interesting reading. So that's where I got the 120 numbers.
You're sounding like a math teacher, man. You're into stats now. You're good.
I was doing some research.
Let's just turn this straight back on
It's
Dave.
not really good breeding usually. It's
Yeah.
I guess it's dry.
Look at two brewers. I mean, you're at what, number 24 now?
Yeah.
Right? That's 24 different expressions from
One distillery.
And plus, because they've got a few, outside of their numbered expressions even. So
26.
So
There's
are
20
there any brands that may have the same whiskey in two different countries under two different names?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kind of like car models. The same car in two different countries are called different models. Does that happen in the whiskey world as well?
yes, it does.
Have you seen that, Daniel?
I have. I couldn't tell you which one specifically, but absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and then talk about blends as well. Obviously, like they'll tweak blends all the time, put a different label on it. I mean, now, especially larger companies, have marketing powerhouses that are figuring out what resonates with certain audiences. What works in China might not work in Canada.
Well, with all the places you've been in, and you're when you get through to the packaging end of it, you can see all the different labels coming off the line that you've never really noticed before. Did you see that?
Yeah. Oh, always.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
That's why I like
Oh no, I was going to say in Scotland. In Kentucky, if you look at there are a lot of distilleries that make a lot of different brands that a lot of people don't realize is coming from the same place. Right? Buffalo Trace has, I don't know how many different brands, 20, 30 different brands that people don't identify with the same distillery.
Yep.
That's like all the stuff coming out of Corby's.
Yeah. There you go, right there. There's a good one.
Well, it's funny because you think they're in competition and you start talking, I like this one better than that one. And really, you can embarrass yourself a little bit too with someone that knows what they're talking. It's like, listen, buddy, just stop.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing from the exact same place.
I had that happen to me with the guys. We were producing 2 different colored products, same product, just different dye. And guy swore by the green one was better than the red one. I said, yeah, I've heard that before. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't.
Green and red colored what? Beer?
It was when I was really young and cleaning products.
Okay, good. You're not tasting the cleaning products. Is that what these guys? That's how you got into the business. Come on, man. I'll show you.
Story for another night.
Okay, done. Daniel, in the book, you don't talk really. You don't have a love for grain whiskeys in the book. That doesn't come across. Okay, but I'm wondering if you would have changed your tune if it was now, because for me, in the past 3 years, I've tried some fantastic grain whiskeys, and I'm wondering if you have changed your mind a little bit, or have you had the chance to have some really good grain whiskeys since then?
Yeah, I actually want to combine this question, if you don't mind, with another one that you asked me about blends.
Sure.
It's the same question, right? I mean, essentially. And yes, I think I would change my mind a bit. I think there's been a lot of interesting developments on grain whiskeys and blends. I think traditionally it's been the cheaper, more mass-produced liquids. But I think people are getting more creative with it, right? And I think that's driven by the market. I think people want their whiskeys, and people are saying, how do you make that better? But yeah, no, I do think that's changed quite a bit. A lot that's coming out of Japan right now is grain whiskey.
Yes. Well, and we talked about that off the air. We talked about some of the rice whiskeys coming out as well that we tried on Tuesday at a tasting. So that's the thing about a book too. You read it and it's a point in time. Totally. And then it's hard to hold someone to the point in time. So then they write the second edition and third. So when you ever write the second and third edition, you can change.
I would love that. I was thinking about that the other day. No, and one of the things is I still maintain how to talk about a grain whiskey, especially the more mass-produced grain whiskeys, because I think that spectrum of what's a vodka and that a grain whiskey is an edge towards a vodka. It just helps explain distillation to people in a layman's terms, right? Not getting into technicalities, but also not saying these are 2 totally different spirits. I mean, you could take any one of these whiskeys and keep distilling it, right? Or put it in a column still and make vodka out of it.
I would like to try this, though. I would like to try a vodka that's been in first fill bourbon cask for 3 years and have just a regular grain. So I've got some Camera there. I've got some Camera Bridge, 3 years old. It's called the Hague or Hague Club, right? Yeah. So it comes in that really pretty blue bottle. I'd like, which goes into, I don't know if it's first fill or second fill, doesn't matter. I'd like to have vodka in wood for 3 years compared to just a really cheap grain. And it's really cheap grain for 3 years, just to see what wood does to vodka, what it would taste like. So I'm thinking about that. If anyone comes across barrel-aged vodka, give me a call. I want to see what that's like. It'd be good. All right, panel. It's time for you guys to dig into the book. I asked you guys to think about, because I said this book for me was finding simple truths. So I found 2, and I'll say mine. So page 45, right at the beginning, it said a barrel is like an inside-out tea bag. So you're steeping from the outside in. So I really like that kind of analogy. And the other one, bottled in bond. So distilled in a single year at exactly 100 proof by one distiller at least 4 years old. But here's the quote I really like that got me there. So hold on. Right there at the bottom. So it's a clever way to sense the skill of the distiller and taste a moment in time. So that's probably my favorite quote in the whole book. All right. So it's just that moment in time, what that distiller could do to the best of his ability. I'm hoping at there. You're tasting that then. So I thought that was cool. So I'm going to leave this to everybody else to jump in. What's your favorite simple truth? Something that, and a simple truth in my mind, something that you could have known you probably knew, you might have forgotten about it, or you just haven't thought about it for a long time, something like that. So anyone wants to jump in, I'm drinking my SMWS and enjoying.
Well, I've lost mine. You made a comparison to drinking.
Cleaning products?
No.
I'm
No. You compared grain whiskey to vodka that, and I can't remember what the quote was. That it was, why would I spend money on something that tasted like vodka? Do you remember that? And I just can't find it. So I've got too many bookmarks in my book, but I know it was just today that I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my simple truth quote that I'll pick is all whiskeys are created equal, but some whiskeys are more equal than others. Perfect, simple. I love it.
Done.
And I agree. I love the quote. I love where the quote came from. And I agree with the quote about whiskey.
I feel like that deserves to be on a t-shirt, that quote.
If another company I know that can steal the train spotting one, it's not a drama, it's a drama, or sorry, it's it's not a drama. It's not a drama, it's a drama, something like that.
Not a drama, it's a drama.
Yeah, they put the other way. You can take that. All whiskeys are created equal, but some are more equal than others.
Put that in there. Good.
That is the best.
All right. We got 2. I'm waiting for the rest.
Well, last week I was talking about on page 11, where you mentioned whiskey tasting is not trial and error, it's trial and trial again. So I still think that's my favorite quote from the book. But also on that same page, you said great whiskey drinkers are made, not born. And I think that's a simple truth too. I mean, you just don't go into a store, buy a bottle, and say, "Oh, I'm an expert at whiskey now," just because you've had one bottle of whiskey, right? It takes a lot of time to sample and talk to people, and just keep trying different things before you develop that palate.
Well, didn't somebody say you had to have at least 100 whiskeys before you hit the wall, and you start to enjoy them after?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if you're having 100 whiskeys in a night, we're at our
Not in a night,
whiskey fest, and you've hit the wall at that point.
Over a couple of days, I think they were talking about.
Well, I talk about this a little bit as well as if you think about beer, you never grab your first beer was not some amazing double IPA.
No,
not at all, right?
It was a Pilsner.
It was a Pilsner, it was Budweiser. Yeah, something easy to drink. I think the same about whiskeys. I think a lot of people grab an Isla because they're like, this is what Daniel likes. This is what my friends like. And they're like, oh, I don't think I can do that. And it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was in high school thinking McDonald's was cool when it first came here. I don't have the same opinion.
Yeah.
You don't need it at McDonald's anymore, Dave?
No.
I still do my
expectations are a little higher.
Sausage muffin, no egg.
Yeah.
And a coffee. That got me through 12 years of hockey at 5 o'clock in the morning on these cold days.
Yeah.
I was picking that up. So I can give that to McDonald's. Good for them.
Really? Not Tim Hortons. I won't go there. Not part of this thing, but
they're not Canadian anymore, buddy. They're owned by
no, I know they're not Canadian. Tim Hortons not Canadian.
And the coffee sucks because they don't have the same coffee distributor that they had before. So Burger King that bought them made them use their coffee or their distributor for coffee. And that's why McDonald's bought that one from Tim Hortons in Canada. And that's why everyone likes Canadian McDonald's coffee now. It's because
Burger King's owned by a company out of Brazil, eh?
Yeah. You would think they'd have better coffee. You really would. But it's
you
horrible.
mean to bring us off topic to coffee?
Yeah.
Let's talk about what's the best scotch to go in coffee.
No, we're still talking about simple truths.
Yeah,
wait for simple truths. There's still 2 more people to talk.
I like the don't worry about spelling it, worry about drinking it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. That's a good one.
Okay, so I'm going 3 back because Nick took the first one, Dave took the first one, and mine. Okay, I have to go cheeky on this one. This one's with the Jack Daniels, the brand that tends to show off in chaotic party scenes like John Belushi's drowning a bottle in the Animal House. Absolutely loved it.
And that's a good visual too, because well, we're all old enough here to have seen Animal House too.
Yeah.
If I say that to a kid, though, my kids,
It's
like,
lost.
what's Animal House? It's like, no. You try to educate them, but they just won't listen at a certain point in time. And Animal House is a good one to look at.
And my question is, who started off with an Islay?
No, I think a lot of people who don't know whiskey. I know people who jump in are like, oh, what do you drink, Daniel? And I'm like, oh, I can tell you what I drink, but I don't know that you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's not a judgment. But I would say, talking about Islay or Isla, Lagavulin in coffee is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to Nick's question now. What's the best? what's the best whiskey in a coffee? And I would suggest that I'll tell you what I don't like. It can't be sherried. And I've tried to have a sherry dram, and I like sherry. The one I have tonight, the Flambe Crepe Suzette from Manicmore, sherry. It's great. It's fantastic. I love it. But in coffee, it's horrible. And we tried in our tasting last night. We tried sherry in ice cream as well, which we thought was actually going to work, and it didn't work at all. So I don't think sherry works with too many different things.
Everybody hated the sherry. Everything.
I know it was horrible. But the Brudar, I thought it was Brudar, and that's a honeyed whiskey, or it's a honeyed liqueur, and I think that would be very good. I agree. Yeah. Anyone else before we go to the next one?
I don't drink coffee, so I have no clue what's going on.
Never?
How about if I just drink the whiskey in the morning? How's that?
There you go.
Warm it up.
Because you need caffeine.
Yeah.
Well, some people do.
I gotta say, Ardbeg 10 is also very delicious in coffee.
Okay. I think anything but the sherried whiskey would be just fine.
And in a Caesar.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in a Caesar. Good for you. Mix that up.
I actually prefer Anno in my Caesar.
Yeah.
No. Anyway, I'm going to go to a new question then. So, and here's a quote as well. And I don't have the quote. I'm just going to read it. Page 107. Although I'm not supposed to mention it, the distilleries even lend one another equipment on occasion and occasionally offer advice. While companies are fighting for space behind the bar on an international level, on the ground, there's still good old Scottish camaraderie. So Daniel and panel, in all we've heard and read about the industry, this seems to be the norm, at least with distilleries and breweries that I've heard of, and especially breweries and the craft brewery movement. I think it feels like they're more cohesive as a group, and they're all helping each other. And this happened in a city I was in just recently. I was doing a tour going from a brewery to brewery to brewery, and I just had a tour from 4 different guys, just a city down south, which I'm not going to mention because we're supposed to hate them. And then the 2 guys that were doing the brewery tour, we saw at the next brewery having their 4 o'clock drink, and they support each other. And I'm wondering if you guys know names of, or you've heard about any of these you could refer to, or some that are actually in competition with each other. I want to know both ends. Is it just me that thinks they're all lovey-dovey? I don't know.
I think it's a mix of everything there. I know a lot of the small brewers, they'll help each other out when they need it, but there's some people in the group that, yeah, they already have a reputation. You don't want to lend them something because you know it's not coming back, or it won't come back.
Okay.
A couple of those guys are gone now, and I won't mention any. But
Well, you might as well. We only got 13 viewers right now. We'll get up to 100. It's not going to work.
oh well, 2 Sergeants was one of the.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't think they would listen to this anyway, but I got a question for Daniel here, and this came up with Davin, who we did our first book with. we all talk about almost the romantic side of distilling, and we're visiting the distillery. Then you get on the sales side, and man, that gets really cutthroat. Like going to the distillery is fun, but when you're out in the field selling against the guys, like the distiller really has I don't think he has any connection to the sales manager other than their friends, and the sales manager just wants to sell as much as he can wherever he can. And I see a real difference between the two sides of that whole thing, of the production side, which you've been in quite a bit.
Yeah.
Were you ever involved on the selling side? Like, do you ever hear the bar stories where the guys come in and buy all the inventory of the other guy and say, okay, put me on there?
Yeah, I mean, I know that. I mean, from the time I was running the magazine, I was more on that side of things. I was never actually selling, but I have friends who sold. 100%. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I meant by this quote is out in the market, it's a bit of a rivalry, right? And especially you look at the bigger companies, and they're all fighting for space on the bar, and they've got salespeople who are trying to buy out the other folks and undercut and all this. And then it was a bit of a shock for me, especially in Scotland, to go out there and folks will move from one distillery to another, and you look at like Isla, and maybe somebody has to cut some staff, so they go to another distillery, and they have the skill set, and their family and cousins and sisters. It's a different vibe, right? And I thought that was really a beautiful thing, actually. But yeah, I've seen that side. It is cutthroat. You know, we can all only drink so much.
Is it just the parent companies then? So you're thinking of Diageo versus everyone else in the world type thing, and that's where that competition comes from, instead of Lefroy having an easy time with Ardbeg and helping each other, whatever it is.
I think as the bigger they are, the more international they are, the more they worry about every bottle they can sell. Mm-hmm. And as the places get smaller, I think we tend to get a little more friendlier.
Good.
Like when there wasn't so many breweries here, I wouldn't go in, and I didn't want to take one of my friends' beers off the market. I wanted to find a way, well, how can I sell mine in here and not displace like Alley Cat?
Okay.
You know, and now I really don't care.
So you're cutthroat now. You've been in the business too long. It's like, fuck.
So if you walk into a beer cooler and there used to be 6 beers on the shelf, now you walk in there's 60.
I like that.
600, yeah.
That's a good thing. Yep.
Yep.
I was at a store today that claims to have over 800 now, Sherbrooke, something like that. But I couldn't get in because I was waiting in line outside, and I wanted to buy whiskey because it was a whiskey buying day, and they were slowing me down. So I just left. That's okay. I was going to go and buy a whole bunch of beer, but that's all right. We're good.
Valentine's, buddy.
Yeah. Valentine's. No, I've got everything I need for Valentine's Day. I'm well prepared this year. And my wife might be watching it upstairs, so I'm not saying anything. But I'm well prepared. It's been well thought out.
That's where the lines are coming from today.
Well, she might be. Nice if she was watching.
Diamond earrings are up in his pocket.
Diamond earrings. No. Well, maybe it is, honey. You just never know. All right. Here's another question. Oh. What?
I said you're hiding the keys to her new Mercedes.
Oh God, yeah.
I thought you said babies.
I thought you said.
Nope, my youngest is out of the house. I don't think babies are the thing. We got 2 new dogs was the new thing for my wife, and I think that filled the need, and I'm hoping it'll. Yeah, that's the way it's got to be. All right, so Dave brought this up. Lots of new breweries, but there's a whole bunch of new distilleries as well. So craft brewing, craft distilling is everywhere. It's throughout North America. I don't know about Mexico and other places. Let's just talk about
Mexico,
that I know about really well, and that we've gotten tons of beer from because that's flooded into our market and it's fantastic. So everything west of us and south were great, and then not so much New York, but that side of the states. Well, Boston, we get a whole bunch of stuff from them, but for us in Canada, we're getting everything, and I love it. But I'm wondering why craft and why now?
Yeah,
what's happening right now? And I know one province. Sorry, for us, I don't know if the states or individual states are kind of promoting it a little bit more, but they're getting tax breaks and able to break into the business. And for us in Alberta, they couldn't be a brewery unless, Dave, you can help out. They brewed 100,000 liters a year, 200,000 liters. I can't remember what it is, but they changed that law. And then all the craft breweries just came out. And it's fantastic.
Craft distilling the numbers were so high that it didn't make any sense. Beer was quite a bit lower, but go back 25 years ago, nobody wanted craft beer.
No, everyone wanted their Molsons.
Yeah, a guy would start a small brewery and then it would go out of business because nobody bought his beer because it tasted different.
Well, in the 70s, they were bought out too. Molson's and Labatt's, and they were buying out the small distillers. And we talked about that. I showed you one bottle I had from Molson's that was an IPA from the 1970s.
Labatt's, yeah.
Really fun. That's cool.
So I got a question for Daniel here.
Yeah.
On this thing. I always cringe when I hear a guy say, "Oh yeah, I got a craft distillery." I said, "Well, when did you buy your still?" "Oh, I got it like a month ago." So how did you learn the craft in a month? Unless you came from, like it's just it frustrates me because I don't understand that.
Like it should be another name, maybe like a hobby distillery.
Well, we call it a small. We've got a micro distillery. We have a 400 liter still. Doesn't mean that we know anything. It's just we bought a still. It's like buying a fancy car, like a sports car. If you got the cash or if you can get the financing, car dealerships don't care if you know how to run it or not.
Yeah.
If you crash it when you're down the street, they've got that thing's already paid for. They're done.
Right.
So
yeah, I always think about craft using the word differently. It's like handcrafted, right? Not all handcrafted chocolates are good.
No.
Right. That's how I always think about the term craft, but I agree with you. I mean, there should be a marker of quality in that as well.
Well, then there's a bunch of guys that call themselves the master distiller, or the brewmaster.
Master distillers or brewmasters.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not a master.
So you got out of college and now you've been brewing for 6 weeks and you're a master brewer or a master distiller. Like, how did that happen?
Right.
When I got my journeyman certificate for my trade, that's the day I started learning it. That was 4 years in.
Yeah.
Right? So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
This actually stems from a buddy of ours, Nicole. And if there was anything you could rewrite in this book, what would you rewrite? What would you update?
Oh my God, that's a big question. I think a lot has changed over the last 10 years, as Dolph was implying. And so I think there's pieces to update throughout the book. I mean, there's some of my own tasting, but I think actually kind of what we're just talking about has changed drastically. I think in 10 years ago, we saw the booming of craft, with air quotes. But now those brands have matured in the way that they've laid down whiskey and it's aged and now there's some really, really good stuff that's from distillers that have been around for 5 to 8 years. I think that's really interesting. And when I wrote the book, I saw them building. And actually, this goes back to the question he just asked, which is fascinating, which is why now, right? And really why 10 years ago, and it's actually coming to fruition now. So I think it's a perfect storm of 3 different things. And one thing to note is that it's always actually done this. It's gone up and down. It's undulated, right? So back before Prohibition in the United States, there were tons of distilleries, and then obviously there were none, and then there were more, and then it goes up and down. Same thing in Scotland, actually, too. Right? If you think about all the mothballed distilleries, like around Campbelltown and stuff, why did they shut them down? There's such amazing whiskey, and now that's incredibly high valued, and it's hard to find, and all of this. And basically what happens, because it takes a while to make whiskey, right now, laws have changed, tax breaks, etc. But B, people are seeing liquid gold because breweries and distilleries, like if you think about breweries, I don't know if you know Ballast Point in San Diego was bought by Constellation for $1 billion. A craft brewery for $1 billion. It's insane, right? So people felt like they're playing the lottery. And also because more and more people are getting into it, people realize it's easier and cheaper to start a distillery. But what's interesting is it goes up and down. So I predict in the next 10 years there will actually be way too much whiskey on the market.
Oh yeah, way too much beer.
Which is, but except beer goes bad.
Yeah.
So this is actually going to be a really interesting moment in time when brands basically have to figure out, well, what do we do? All the craft distilleries have flooded the market, not only just craft, but big distilleries as well. But everyone also has to plan 10 to 12 years in advance. So the people who are building distilleries now won't have a product out for 8 to 10 years, maybe. Maybe 5 if it's in the U.S. And but it's a fascinating thing. So I think it's a perfect storm of the market has taken a liking to whiskey. People see money signs, right? And I'm talking about craft distillers that are like, I'm going to build this brand, sell it. Tito's vodka. People like that who have made a ton of money. They've been idolized. But I think it's going to cause a lot of whiskey to flood the market, which is going to be really interesting.
Well, maybe
the price goes down.
Yeah,
the price goes down. And what's interesting is, I don't know much. Maybe you guys can educate me on this. I don't know a lot of craft happening in Scotland. I know a lot of big brands that are actually building distilleries and investing, but it's a very, and I think because it's a very guarded industry. I don't think it's cheap or easy to build a distillery. No, I don't know if you guys know otherwise.
Well, there's these guys. So the Canadians that bring these into Canada. So the SMWS Canada, we have. Do we remember the name of the distillery? I think
Holyrood. Yeah,
Holyrood. So they're opening Holyrood, and they're in Edinburgh. I think so. So that's where they're opening up, and we hear that. And in Ireland, that's happening right now, and we hear about certain things in different places, but it's not like here. Not nearly the amount that we have here. But I don't know. Maybe
we're hearing about a lot of mothball sites being reopened.
Yes. Yeah.
More than any.
And ones that are already owned by Diageo that they're saying, well, let's open this up. Yeah. But anyways, I'm going to cut us off. We're going to talk about this in the after jam for a second because we've just passed the 1 hour mark, gentlemen. So I'm gonna wrap things up, and then we'll keep talking in the after jam, or our after jam, because there's no after jam tonight. That's
not a public one. Yeah,
that's right. So that's it. It's been a fantastic evening. So thank you to you, the listeners. Thank you to the whole panel here. Dave, Drew, Jason, Kent, Nicholas, absolute pleasure spending all this time with you. The hour was fun. Special thanks to Daniel spending the last 2 Saturdays with us. Hopefully we didn't scar you too much and everything was great. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. So Daniel, I'll give you just the last couple comments, and I'll go around if anyone has anything to say before I do my last little toast to everybody else. Daniel, any last thoughts before we sign off?
Let me pour myself a little dram first. Very interesting, by the way. This is gifted to me. The celebratory blend. Oops.
Okay.
They're doing some interesting things. Last words.
Yep.
Yeah. Enjoy the dram before it's gone.
Yep. Done. Thank you. Anyone else before we sign off?
Can't beat that.
Join us for the next book.
Well, hold it.
All right.
You're jumping ahead. I enjoyed the book, Daniel. What's wrong with the grocery store sushi?
Go to Japan. Go to Japan, and then ask me that question.
Okay.
I get my $10 pallet from Costco, and I'm pretty happy too. It lasts me for lunch.
I get that too.
So I'm there with Dave. I understand you, but we haven't been to Japan, either of us. All right, gentlemen, raise the glass. Here's the good company. Here's the good whiskey. Here's the good books right there. And here's the good conversation, which we all had tonight. It was fantastic. I loved it. And here's to seeing you all in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Saturday, March 6th, 2021, at a new time, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because this gentleman right here, Dominic Rusgrove, he's in England. So we have to accommodate him, because if we did this at 7 o'clock at night, it would be 2 o'clock in the morning for him. So here's our new book, Whiskey Japan, the essential guide to the world's most exotic whiskey. And as a final note, if you don't want to miss a minute of it, no matter when it comes on, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Clicky will makes us all happy. And that's it, gentlemen. Let's have a fantastic night, and I'll talk to you all later. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you, guys.